next levels as they join us to do the latest single, an absolute smash entitled
The Magical Messages. Sit down, let me hit you with this good soul sermon. Seems so urgent, the way my flow emerging. Niggas like to talk quick, but they slow learning. You forgot me like a pot on the stove burning. Dropping gems that can heal you, just like elixir. Freemasons can't erase Phoenix from the picture. Dope oratory, spit it by the gallon. Colors in my aura like aurora borealis. You gotta learn astrology, you can't ignore the will. Divine protection, all up in my force field. Spiritual war is real, they wanna draw the steel. I'm getting paper the same color as chlorophyll. I am the new decision like a quarter pill. It's all the same meaning, God's plan of Lord's will. Plant more seeds than in vitro. Frequency turned, my atoms on fleek mode. Thank you for coming out this evening. Nobody drop jewels like we bring. Ever since the shorty wop, I could see things. Astrology to Kabbalah to the I Ching. Deep alchemy quotes, they hit your heart zone. I write galaxy notes, no smartphone. And if I'm doing alchemy, then why challenge me? Trollers, they watching like Malcolm on the balcony. But I'm winning, vindicated by the victory. Popping off like Peter with this rap ministry. Tell me your birthday, I gotta check the synastry. I gotta see how we can calibrate this energy. Chilling in my tie zone, no anarchy. Real soul, fly stone, where the family. Fourth house, Cancer moon, let it bless me. Feminine race, she Oshun sexy, 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 sexy.
Yo, Ty, yo, this groove right here make me feel like I'm dancing in the stars. This that mystical magic, they be wishing they had it. This is dose of uncut for the lyric fanatics. From the pineal gland crystal that sits in my attic. That God deity, DMT, DVD, holographic Blu-ray, sacred flower bouquets. Some say the clouds were too gray. My thoughts are pixie dust like baby powder on a new day. Sprinkled by the hidden hand, flowing in the ethers into spirits in your liquor stand. For the believers who don't go through the procedures, who can know without seeing when your omen is the gift of man. My skin was sewn from the hopes of all the dreamers. Alpha the theta, delta the beta, serenade your brainwaves, be living in fantasia. I'm not a shock when we giving the fans stages. Serpent mound pyramid sitting on grand masons. They can't ignore it, the vision's too damn major. It's mathematically visible, playing data like phones with no contract. We broke from the traps to metaphysic God rap. Ain't no holding it back. These zombies under deep spells wouldn't know if it's back. Spirals in the seashells, mark the road to get back. And this ain't the full meal, lit is only a snack. We gon' see the fakes hate it when we in the same spaceship that y'all had. With my pulse low, you catch these felines. Feel my lines when I'm flowing like that. It's the law of attraction. See the flaws got me laughing. You a magnet that repels. You don't only attract. See the magic in our spells. Now I'm fashion, you can yell. God take their mind higher like I'm passing them the L. Vesica Pisces like we wrapped it in Chanel. Mother Nature is the holy zodiac that keeps our DNA braided so our soul is intact. Amethyst, tanzanite, purple stones in my lap. Full moon, white and jewelry be glowing like that. I broke the ice that had the avatar in it. I've never cast a spell that had no average bars in it. Jupiter conjunct, got no average Mars, get it? Turn into the Hulk, leave a savage's card dentist with a pinky touch on a matchbox for the dollars. Now I'm the gear straw man, paper dolls and paper dollars. How they control man, invisible strings. I ride from the sun with invincible wings. From a Reverconda, my every mantra's a heavenly opera. Peace to the new gods, the beast, the clear truth gods. Smoke with the Rasta, sip, brew with the Brujas. Zodiac shaman, holy map watching. Force through Saturn's rings like an astronaut boxing. Don't be fools, go to school, don't be hardheads. Come to me, call up Ty, get your chart read. Ace of spades, they amazed how the cards spread. Redesign, teach the blind what the stars said. The zodiac redesigned is the dark web. Got us living cage free like the farm eggs. Reattached to Godhead, knowledge the lead. We should clear to go to cosmic physics college instead. It's Ty Zodiac and Titanium. Perform live on the stage in your mind stadium. Get your mind right, raise your vibranium. It's Chaldean design, sometimes Sabian. Listen, it's not a temporary trend. These are ancient secrets here. Y'all gon' wake up in the end. To every rhyme that you wrote, you can go delete it. Two serpents, one mic like a double helix. Think it's the US, then poof, you in ancient Egypt. Poof, you in ancient Egypt. You in ancient Egypt.
I'd like to say it's open and heavy with us. We'd like to come back real soon and do some more things.
Peace, 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 peace. I'm over here jamming. I hope you were too. That was a banging song. I love that. Peace and prosperity to you all. I'm your sister Rue, here with MaWu Lisa Temple, beautiful upstate New York. And this is the Healing Chambers. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Oh, I'm so excited to be here tonight. Before I get started, I want to say a big shout out to Knowledge Born Allah and Do the Knowledge radio platform. We never really truly discuss what it is I'm going to say, and I never discuss what it is he's going to play. However, they always seem to be in alignment. We are talking about nurturing. This is our recap for this month, and we had some great discussions about nurturing and its importance, where it begins, who's responsible for nurturing wounds left over from our childhood. So we have a little bit to go over today, and then I'm actually going to read to you some questions that I received, and you can always send questions to our Instagram DMs at MaWu Lisa Temple 1, and you can always send them to MaWu Lisa Temple at gmail.com. We love to answer your questions, and as you see, we do address them during our recap. And if you need something addressed sooner than our recap, you can always put that in your message and let us know that you need someone to get back to you right away. So shout out to Knowledge Born for being able to sync that music with what we're going to start talking about, nurturing. So we talked about nurturing, and we gave a general definition of what nurturing was and what it looked like. And we all agreed that nurturing is the process of helping someone grow, develop, at any stage. But of course, in the dictionary, they talk about from childhood into adulthood. But as we quickly understood, and as we quickly saw, that nurturing is something that continues to take place all throughout our lives, right? So we started with mother, and we kind of even actually started that conversation back near Mother's Day, when we talked about the importance of mother and the child in the womb. And we've even talked about how nurturing begins in the womb, because again, a part of this nurturing is emotional and psychological. So what the mother is thinking and feeling transfers to that beautiful piece of flesh that becomes one of us, right? So that all begins then. So how the mother thinks, how the mother feels, that begins to go in part of that nurturing process. Once a child comes into this earth, to this plane, birthed into this plane, we talk about the study with the border babies who, they found that when not touched, these children could die. It is important, and touch is an important part of nurturing. And it's one that falls under the physical aspect of nurturing, which is how that music tied in, because part of that is dancing with your, children, singing with your children, hugging your children. All of these things are part of that nurturing process. I actually remember watching Soul Train with my mom and us doing our own little Soul Train line in the living room. So this is part of the nurturing that I experienced from mother right after, that coming out, because I tell people, the Wiz had came out, and I remember her playing that song over and over and over and over and over and over. And so that nurturing, something as small as that, is something that carries us into our adulthood. So back to the nurturing of mother. When we talked about nurturing in this particular series, we talked about how when we mention nurturing, people always think of the mother first, because we know the mother is with the child most times more than anyone else. Okay. Even when, a family is complete, the father goes out to work, the mother is home with the child. The mothers are the first teachers. And so in that teaching comes nurturing as well. We further discussed how many of us, when we first became mothers, had no idea what nurturing looked like, how we considered nurturing and caring for our child was food, clothing, and shelter. Some of us were, prepared enough to know that that came with some psychological aspects, emotional things, and all that. But for the most part, we were dumb kids having children. You know what I mean? Like let's keep it a buck. We had no idea, and we had no real framework for what nurturing looked like, because many of us, our parents, were raising us by the seat of their pants too. Okay, so in order to truly understand nurturing as we see it defined now, and as we can understand it in our adult minds, in our mature minds, there's no way, unless somebody sat down and said to you, hey, listen, you are about to have this child. These are the things that this child needs. This is how you provide these things for this child. Many of us are not going to get it right. And it causes a nurture wound. So if that's from mother, that can manifest itself in mommy issues, as they call it. And we're going to address that too, because somebody had a very interesting question about mommy and daddy issues. Now, if the family is fortunate enough to be intact and father is in the home, divine masculine is represented, there's a different type of nurturing that takes place. I was so grateful to have Knowledge Born Allah and Mr. Nick Westbrooks, help with the discussion, two-parter, because it was really, it really got interesting about the importance of father or male, divine masculine in the nurturing process. Now, if this is something that is in the home, we have to understand, again, these people with no training are raising these children, so they don't understand that in the place of nurturing sometimes, what the children see is what they really walk away with, so how they see things done, how they hear things done, this is how they know, because nobody walks up to you and say, hey, this is a nurturing lesson I'm about to give you. So does the father hug the children? Does the father spend time with the children? Does the father, listen to the children and support them, in their goals and things that they try to do? All of this is part of nurturing. Listening to them, allow them to be able to express themselves. Now, I grew up in a household, where, children were meant to be seen and not heard. You ain't running around here talking about your feelings and your emotions. Wasn't nobody telling you, oh, tell me how you feel. They, really didn't care for the most part like that. And I don't think it was in a facetious way. As a matter of fact, I know it wasn't. It was just in the way of that's how it was then. I was just telling someone today, one thing I'll tell people is I don't know everything. If I know, I know. And if I don't know, I don't know. But one of the things I know is that part of this journey is learning how to evolve, how to ascend to another level of the best version of yourself. And some people would remain in this space where they, allow a lack of nurturing in certain places to hinder them from all that they can be. But I can promise you that these nurture wounds, if you will, are great opportunities for us to evolve and become a better example for those coming behind us. So what if the dad is not? What if the father, the divine masculine, is not present in the household? This gets a bit tricky, and we can have whole conversations about the importance of the stability of a family and all of these things, the foundation of a family. But right now, we're just going to address the fact, if the father is outside of the home, how does he still nurture and provide what is needed for this child to receive what it is that it needs to be successful as a little person in this world? Let me just say that it's unfortunate that many people can't co-parent in a way that's healthy. Again, that goes back to their foundation and how they learn to communicate, how they learn to interact not only with themselves, with each other and their child. But because of this unhealthy dynamic that we have a lot of times centered around co-parenting, children hear things, that can hinder the process of nurturing, or things are said to them or around them that damage, and cause nurturing wounds. You know, having your mother tell you your father don't care about you. That is a direct hit to a child, you know, direct hit, you know, father promising to show up and not showing up, direct hit. So see, it's enough blame to pass around for everybody. It's enough blame to pass around for everybody. So we all have to be involved in this nurturing conversation because we need to know what we can do, whether we are in the home or outside of it. And first thing is just understanding what it looks like to nurture your child. Every child needs something different. It takes me back to the video that preceded tonight's show, when they were showing the zodiac signs in the moon, and people, that follow astrology, the moon has to do with emotions, and reactions, emotional reactions. And, I thought about how, something can happen to one child and they'll respond one way. Something can happen to another child, same household, same parents, and they'll respond a whole other way. Nurturing is pretty much the same thing. What one child needs in nurturing, another may not. Raising children is a full-time job. And it is one where you have to pay complete attention to just about everything. But in this world, the way it's set up, this system, the way it's set up, it doesn't afford you the opportunity to be able to be the best parent you can be in terms of this nurturing. Okay. So I wanted to just really say that I call it nurturing from behind the 8 ball. Like after things have already kind of gotten out of control, how do you come back in and kind of wheel that back in? And when we were talking with Knowledge Born a Lot and Nick, they talked about, things that we can do now and moving forward that will allow us to be able to provide these children what they need. And so when I was talking about the emotional aspect of it and the moon and the zodiac signs, where I was going with that is you think about how children respond to things, right? You can almost 100% spot a child who has only had divine feminine energy. Some will say, I will say that toxic energy is sometimes in there as well, because we ain't all divine all the time. So you can pretty much spot a young man or a young woman that's solely been nurtured or lack thereof by their mother because of the way that they respond. Having that divine masculine provides a balance, because how is a little young man supposed to know how to respond and he never seen a man respond to nothing before? He only ever saw how the women respond to everything, and he ends up responding like that. That's why we got a bunch of these little boys running around here now behaving the way they are. They over emotional, over emotional. And believe it or not, some of our young ladies are under emotional. A lot of our young ladies don't even have what it takes to begin to nurture some children. We in trouble. We in trouble. We really need to be having parenting classes again. Like I don't understand why this is not a thing. And if it is, why it's not talked about more. You understand? Because trust me, you think you got it, you ain't got it. You ain't got it. You ain't got it. It takes a village. But these emotional responses are direct, indicators of trauma wounds and wounds of uh, lack of nurturing. Okay, and I said that someone had mentioned, has sent in some questions. We'll get to those after, our break, but I just want to continue in this vein and talk about the importance of us continuing to nurture ourselves and acknowledge where it is we've had some nurture wounds. So let's just say here we are all grown up. We now know it's this word called nurture. We look it up, we see what it means, we think about our own childhood, and we say, I didn't get some of that. So what do you do? What do you do? I had someone tell me one time, you go digging too far into yourself, you'll never find your way out. My thing is this: you're supposed to be finding your way in anyway. Don't you want to know why you do what you do? Don't you want to know why you respond the way you do to the things that you do? Getting to know yourself is more fun, the most fun you'll ever have, and the most painful thing you'll ever do. So if you're not cut out for it, stay where you at. But for those of us who realize that we have some of these issues, or we see places where we could have used more nurturing, what do we do? Well, first and foremost, we acknowledge that this is not something that is our fault, that we could have done anything about at that time. And we then acknowledge that we are here now, and that there are things that we can do, self-nurturing, to help to begin to seal those wounds, heal those wounds, and seal those wounds so they no longer hinder us moving forward. People said to me, well, what's the importance of healing nurture wounds? Part of nurturing is, learning about who you are, being able to express yourself, feeling like you're being heard. For a person with a nurture wound, these are the people we see that they don't have a voice. They keep themselves small. They don't feel like what they have to say is important. Or you get the opposite of it, which is this loud, boisterous person always hooping and hollering, look at me, look at me, look at me. This is how it manifests itself. Again, don't we want to know why we do what we do? So for the person who is willing to do this work and go in and realize, like, hey, I need to love on myself some. Self-care is learned from nurturing. You learn this early. Here in MaWu Lisa Temple, I told you we talk about our own experiences. We ain't telling you something we read in a book. We telling you real life. If you're not taught self-care and self-love and self-worth and self-respect at a young age, in that vital nurturing stage, from the divine feminine and the divine masculine, if you don't get those lessons there, they will manifest themselves in you later. And so if you are going to continue to grow, ascend, seeking your freedom, your liberty, if you really doing that, you're going to have to address those things, love yourself. And that's going to take some work. That's going to take some time, because people, You hear people walking around here talking about they love themselves all the time, and they think that means going to get your hair done and your nails done, and and going to buy fast cars, or yeah, I love myself. I got a brand new suit, and it's like those things are great, but those things are material. Loving yourself is being able to sit with yourself without being self-criticizing. All of us sit around and criticize ourselves. Oh, I should be further. I should be taller. I should be shorter. We find things wrong with ourselves that are just ridiculous. But believe it or not, those nurturing spaces that we missed would have made that a whole lot easier. So now it's our duty to ourselves and to those around us to heal those nurture wounds. Because guess what? Hurt people hurt people. How many times we hear that, right? So unnurtured people don't know how to nurture people. When Nick and Knowledge One were talking, we talked about how they continue to nurture each other in their respective circles, with their comrades, with their colleagues. How do you support your sisters in a circle? How do you uplift them? How do you nurture them if you don't really even know how to nurture yourself, if you've never been nurtured? I think it's amazing that all of these groups of men and women are coming together and they talking and they healing and they doing the work. It's about time. It's fantastic. I'm so grateful to be here to see it. I'm grateful to be here to see it. Because for those of us who have always understood that healing those traumas from our childhood, including this nurture wound, it's vital. It's vital. One of the things that I realized in talking with some of my peers is that they are very afraid to ever admit that, they didn't do something right. See, I could care less what people think about me, right? And I dare somebody to come up to me and say anything about what I share about myself. I can look at my children just like I can look at myself and see places where I could have been nurtured more. I can look at my children and see how I was maturing, what kind of nurturing I gave my oldest children versus what I gave my middle children versus what I gave my youngest children. And you want to know what? You would think that by the time I got to the youngest children, I had it on lock, right? Nope, missed some other stuff. But the thing is that knowing that and acknowledging that and just acknowledging it, you can do that work now. Your children gonna always be your children. And if you had an opportunity to offer and provide them nurturing, no matter how old they are, that's your duty. Now, nurturing is not telling them what to do or telling them how disappointed you are in them and all the things. That's not nurturing. That'll do more damage than good. Nurturing is having conversations about nurturing. Believe it or not, something just that simple. Going to your child and say, hey, I've been thinking about nurturing in my life. Tell me what your experience was with me in nurturing. And you'd be surprised what you hear. You ain't always going to like it. You ain't always going to like it. Because you have to remember, this is perceived in their child mind too. But by having these conversations with them as adults, you can provide for them missing pieces of that information, why you didn't even know they needed a thing. And it can help to mend and heal not only the wound that they have, the wound that you have, and the separation between the families. We are not close enough with each other. you know, and with good reason. I mean, people, hurt people. So people when I did dirt to each other, and it's very difficult to trust people. But that's why this nurturing is so important, and that's why having a circle of people around you to nurture you is important. So, with that being said, I'm going to take a little break here, and then I will come back and I will answer some of the questions that we got in our DM and in our email. And then I will let you good folks go do what you do on your Thursday night. So, I'm your sister Rue. This is the Healing Chambers. Please take this time, enjoy this break. I know Knowledge One is going to play something awesome. Peace, peace, peace. It's your sister with MaWu Lisa Temple, beautiful upstate New York. And if you are a Healing Chamber regular, let me just say, you know, we cannot have a week where we don't have some kind of technical difficulty. Either it's me glitching and freezing, or it's me popping back in and out, or my guest popping back in and out. So I guess today was the music's turn. But you know what? I'm glad to be back with you. We are talking about nurturing, our recap on our nurturing series. So before we get started, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the nurturing in our circles. So I'll start with one of the questions we had here. We had a question from a young sister. She asked, how important is it to find sisters that nurture you? Okay, so it couldn't be more vital. You know, one of the things I like to say is that we have to remember we are in a space, we are in a place that programs us to not like each other, to not trust each other, to not provide with each other what we need, right? One of the things, I don't say I hate very many things, but I hate to hear people say, oh, mothers and daughters, they just don't get along. I think that is one of the most destructive things that can come out of a woman's mouth. Oh, I just don't like hanging with women. You know, I don't get along with them. I get along better with God. Destructive words. Destructive. Some that I've said, you know, not realizing it was part of a nurture wound. You know, in nurturing from mother, we learn trust of women. If you can't trust the woman you came out of, what woman can you trust? So see, that was the experience for many of us, many of my sisters. They didn't even trust their own mothers, or they had issues with their own mothers, fighting with their mothers, all these things. So how do you think they're going to react and respond and work with other women? But see, here's the secret. Deep down inside, that's all we want. Deep down inside, every time we try, that's all we want. You know, my mom used to say, birds of feather flock together. It's a reason why certain types of sisters hang with certain types of sisters. It's trauma bonding. You know, they can all relate to that thing that they didn't get, and they try to provide it for each other, not realizing that that's just an aspect of the issue. That's just an aspect of that nurture wound. You need all of that woman to come together. The parts you like and the parts you don't like. The wild part and the tame part. All of these things it is. Whitney used to say that I'm every woman. Shaka Khan told you they every woman. You every woman. So all these women you need. So sister, it's very important to find a cipher of sisters, a circle of sisters that you can be with. You know, one of the things that I'd like to say about that, though, is that there needs to be a vetting process. And the reason I say that is because some of the chaos that these women bring in sometimes to a circle is like a tornado and tears everything up. You know, people don't realize Mother Nature is more destructive than anything else. So when mother's out of order, she can tear some things up. And the sister that comes into a circle of sisters that's maybe not so strong and she chaotic, she can tear everything in there up. But if she come into the right circle, sisters, though, she gonna get calm right on down. So this is what we need to start doing for each other. We need to be honest with each other. We need to stop being so sensitive about somebody telling you that you out of pocket. That's what's wrong with our sisters now. Everybody, they own, that's great. I listen, I believe in you. You know what I'm saying? I'm your sister. I'm here with you. But yo, we ain't always right. And the way you learn these things is by working together and doing this nurturing work with each other. We inspire each other. We remind each other. We support each other. We listen to each other. We need these spaces. And there has to be a safety and a security in there. And that's one thing nurturing provides. That's how you know if you're being nurtured proper. You feel safe. And that goes for anybody you're around, in any environment you're in. If you feel safe and comfortable, you know you are being nurtured. Anything that make you feel on edge, check it. Don't mean you ain't being nurtured, but maybe it's some other things going on as well. So I just wanted to thank that sister for her question. And as Nick and Knowledge Born Allah covered in those 2 weeks, and go watch those 2 weeks of discussions. They really did talk about the importance of men nurturing each other and how they are continuing to do that, amongst themselves and their peers. I think they really gave some great examples, because Knowledge Born talked about the warrior aspect. And you know what? There is a space for sisters that are warriors like that, they got to always get the business. It's a space for them. And they need to be together. But they also need to know that there's another side to that. And as the mothers of this place, we all got to work together. Got to heal wounds for that. Next question. How can nurturing heal our community? Well, first it begins with you. I had 2 discussions today when I talked about people leading by example. You can't just, well, I'm not gonna say you can't, but people are, like I said, very emotional and sensitive. So, you can't be talking to somebody and be like, yo, son, yo, sis, you got a nurture wound. They not really trying to hear you though. You understand what I'm saying? They looking at you like, what? But if you are working on yourself, if you are working on your nurture wound, and they see you start to behave differently, or they see you start to treat them differently, or the ones around y'all differently, and they ask you, hey, so-and-so, I noticed that you are blah, blah, blah. You'd be like, yeah, I was doing some soul searching and realized that, it was some spaces and places in my early development that I didn't get what I needed, and I'm working on that. Would you like to know what I did? See, then we'll have you up here, MaWu Lisa Temple, teaching a workshop on it. You feel me? Because this is what we do. We share. So, we start with ourselves. That's how we help our community. And then we extend it out into our families. Back on the old lecture circuit back in the day, in our antique times, many of us who went out and did lectures and workshops, whether we taught them or we were there as students, we brought our children, most times because, we were trying to also introduce and expose them to an atmosphere that was advantageous to them, moving in the direction that would make them more well-rounded people, right? But a lot of times where some of our frustration would come in for those of us who would bring all of our children with us was the couple of people who wouldn't bring their children at all, to anything, their young children or their older children. And we used to say to them, how do you expect, your family to be cohesive and be on the same vibration if you just coming out and you leaving them all at home? So my next suggestion would be is when you start doing this work on yourself, sit down, talk with your family, talk with your spouse, talk with your children, and start there. Don't even take it outside of there. If you're still fortunate enough to have your mother and your father, you can talk to them. That's a nice place to start. But do this in your family, and you'll see that same effect I was talking about when somebody sees what you're doing with you. Doing it as a family draws other families to be like, wow, that family is always so, happy. They so close. They seem to really have it together. You know why? Because they're on the same vibration. They working on those wounds. They nurturing each other. They loving each other. They learning to love and respect and honor themselves more. And then, as you lead by example, you can go out in the community. Again, I said, I don't know why we don't have any parenting classes or conversation circles going on. I know good and well y'all not all home having such a great time with your children that you don't need to have a conversation with somebody. Sometimes you just need to go and have somebody hear you, like, yo, if I hear one more video game, if I step on one more Lego, whatever it is, you need somebody to talk to. This is part of nurturing that emotional, psychological aspect of it. You know what I'm saying? Because again, nobody sat you down and taught you how to deal with these children. And for many of us in our communities, we don't readily go and get a book on parenting. Unfortunately, we don't, that wasn't a normal thing. I think now it's a little more, you have it more because you got all these videos and things on the interwebs. So, I think that, people have more access to these things now. And I will say that through many of the mistakes that we made, my generation made, our children have tried even harder to be better parents than we were. So some of them are ahead of the curve when it comes to this whole nurturing thing. You be looking like, wow, I wish I would have did that with you. You know what I'm saying? Like, sorry, but it's like, sorry, not sorry, because I didn't know. You know what I mean? But for those, for watching our children, watching our grandchildren grow, it's a beautiful thing because we get to see that evolution of people understanding that they need to address and heal themselves so they can, do better. Better, you do better, right? Okay. So that is that question. Thank you for that question, brother. I appreciate that. This one was really this one I already kind of started answering this a little bit, but I'll read the question anyway because I had the feeling that it came from a sister who was feeling a little bit away about whatever's going on. But it says, does it really matter if the father is a nurturer in the child's life? I have sons, and I did a pretty good job in doing the things that I can do, but one of the things I always acknowledged and respected and honored was that it was some things that I could not teach them, that I could not provide for them, that I was not the one where they can get that from, for many reasons. It is so vital for a young man to see how other men, how adult men live. And I mean that in its totality, how if they are ambitious, if they workers, if they providers, if they're nurturers. Men have to learn how to love men, especially in this day and age, y'all. You can see where it was nurturing needed that was not given, and it caused some of the nonsense we got going on right now with our young men. They just want somebody to hug them. They want somebody to make them feel safe. That's what father's job is. Father is the one to make you feel safe. You know, and I say this, you know, I'll go as far as say this because, you know, I don't work with people in all walks of life. You know, you see a little boy who is angry, just running around tearing everything up, you know, not knowing what to do with his emotions, you know, not knowing how to handle conflict, not knowing how to speak to an adult or elder, not knowing how to speak to women. And we ask ourselves, is father important and nurturing? Is, you know, and I know everybody father ain't gonna be there, yo. People are sin, people go to jail, people, you know, don't want to be bothered. That's fine. But, you know, for me, just to ask this question, if father is available to be in a child life, let the father be there. If he want to do the job, let him be there. Because see, him doing the job or not doing the job, the child still gets a lesson. Again, like I said, you see all these young men out here living the life they live in. They need a hug. You know, they think they need something more, but they need a hug. One from their mama and one from their daddy. And that's just my 2 cents on that. You know, divine masculine also teaches us how to not only, it doesn't only provide us with a sense of protection, it teaches us how to protect. It teaches us how to protect. Some young men don't know how to protect their home. They think protecting their home is just slanging a gun or something. It's more than that. Protecting your home is assuring that your home is a healthy home, mentally, physically, and emotionally. You know, bringing balance. So yes, young sister, it's important for the father or divine masculine to be in a child's life. They can't go their whole life without it. And if they do, at some point, they need to address it. And that is the opinion of me, MaWu Lisa Temple. Okay. All right. So we had 2 more questions. Next one was, in self-nurturing, what are some things to do? Examine yourself, you know, sit down, take a little list, you know, go back, look at the definition of nurturing or nurturer and all of these words, because, you know, I come from the old school. I send people to the dictionary and then I send them to look up the etymology and all that good stuff if you really have some fun time on your hands, you know. But for those who want to do just the general research of it or just an exercise, I would suggest going to look at the word nurturer and look at the word nurture and sit down and begin to write a list about places in your childhood that you can remember or that you can't remember, or places where you feel like some of these things were slacking. And again, I told you, it's enough fingers to point at everybody. So this is not about finger pointing. This is not about writing a list and running to your mother and be like, you didn't do this and you didn't do that. That's not what this is about. This is about learning what we need and getting it. You know, learning what we need and getting it. That's where we're at. Right? That's one thing we can do. Another thing we can do is sit down and talk to somebody who we have in our lives that we trust. And you can have an open conversation about nurturing. Again, bring that same definition to the table and begin the conversation about it. Hey, listen, you've known me this many years. What do you think about some of this right here? I'm looking at this word. I'm looking at this thing that nurturing was supposed to provide. How do you think that, what you see in me is a reflection of, over nurturing, under nurturing? I don't think there's a over nurturing. I think what happens sometimes is that the things we mistake for nurturing are overdone. I.e., buying children toys just to make up for things. That's just, people think that's nurturing. Buying toys is not. So that's something we can do. Sit down and have conversations with people you trust and people who are also on the journey of doing the work to heal some of these wounds that we have, these trauma wounds. And later on in the year we'll be talking about trauma bonds, which that's going to be a whole conversation in itself, because we've all done it. We've all been there. But the nurturing aspect, this is something you can do. Just do some self-inventory, do some self-work. Okay. Last but not least, what if you have someone that has a nurture wound and they don't want to fix it? That is not your problem. Simple answer. It's not your problem. Now, what you're faced with is do I want to stay, or do I want to keep this person in my life that clearly has a wound that is going to affect me? Because it's not if it's going to affect you, it's when and how it's going to affect you. Okay. If it wasn't affecting you already. Right. But the other thing is, you cannot drag somebody to their healing space. They have to walk into that chamber on their own and go in there and face the things on their own. And then if they are fortunate enough, they will have someone who will then help to pour into that space that is that wound. They'll learn how to pour into it themselves and eventually heal it. And not only heal it, be able to evolve and use their experience to help other people by living by example. So those were all the questions that we had. Again, you can always send your questions to the DM at MaWu Lisa Temple 1 on Instagram. And you can email us at mawulisatemple@gmail.com. I am always here. Our sisters and brothers are always available to answer any questions. So before I get out of here tonight, I also want to tell you about some things coming up. Registration for our fall classes will be starting, inshallah, in the beginning of August. In October, in September, we have the beginning of our Retire Your Family Karma series. This is the series you hear me rant and rave about every year. I'm going to do it again this year. No, better yet, how about I just play some playbacks of the last couple of years every time I'm telling y'all to come get this work. But Retire Your Family Karma, great book, great exercises. We go through it together as a family, healing together out loud. It is amazing. It is amazing work. So registration for that will be opening up. Registration for, and that is all winter, by the way. I want to be clear. This starts in the fall. We take a little break we take like a 1-week break in the beginning of December, and we take it the rest of the way through till March. It is an amazing opportunity to do some fantastic deep work. For the month of October, we have our 4-week series on building and strengthening your intuition. Lots of fun. We do some fun exercises for people who are new or just really silly and goofy and enjoy a good laugh, but also learning something, this is a great place for you. We have a lot of fun. So the registration for the intuition 4-week session will be given out in the second week of August. We'll be opening those registrations. Now, for people who are interested in our creative workshop that we have in the month of December, I'll be getting some information out about that. For those who need to travel and will be coming from out of state, please get to us as soon as possible so we can tell you about the lodging for this year. Okay, so with that being said, we have had a recap on nurturing. It's important. Get on it. This is my word for today. This is my word for this week. Really just understand that this process, this journey of healing will be one that you will be doing for a very long time. So let's do it together. Let's do it out loud. Let's make it fun. Let's make it let's make ourselves worthy. Let's make ourselves worthy of the things that are to come in our lives. So I'm your sister Rue, MaWu Lisa Temple, beautiful upstate New York, Hudson Valley. And this was the Healing Chambers. I thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. Peace.